What's up, everybody? This is Neil Kongstrong again. I got a bunch of charts to go over today, so I'm just going to go through them and give my initial impressions. But I wanted to start by talking about something that I haven't gone over yet and that is basically important to understanding my analysis here. Also, big shout out to CryptoLander for this amazing OG Kongz hat. I love it. It's incredible. I thought about keeping it in the box and trying to make it like, just keep the value. And then I was like, whatever, I need to wear my Kongz merch so that I can find my fellow Kongs out in the jungle. Anyways, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is about just sort of the general mentality of how to approach a trade. So, when you watch this video, when you watch me analyzing charts, you're going to see me talking a lot about entries and exits. You're going to see me talking about what I think might happen, and that all kind of, it's important to know, what is likely to happen, but you also need to have an idea of what your specific strategy is. There are some strategies that are going to make sense for some people and not for others. So you might be watching this video and I might be saying, oh, if it were me, I would sell here. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should sell at that point. So really, when you are looking for trades, trades, first of all, are very different than long-term investments. Long-term investments are just, you see something that you believe in, you buy into it with the intention of holding it for a long time, months, years, decades, even in some cases. And you don't really worry so much about the day-to-day fluctuations in that case. But when you are trading, whether that be day trading, swing trading, whatever, you want to have an idea of where you're going to get in and where you're going to get out. So a lot of times when I'm analyzing these charts, I'm really analyzing it more from a perspective of shorter term trading, like swing trading. If you are buying sushi, for example, because you really believe in the project and you think that Sushi Swap is going to the moon over the long term, then you might not need to sell just because I say, oh, I would sell here. So just keep that in mind. Nothing I say is financial advice, and everything comes from the very specific viewpoint of how I think about things. So let's talk for a second just about how you might determine a trade setup. So let's just say, for example, I'm going to take a very simple example here, which is we're going to be looking at let's just say you are looking for a place to buy in ETH. So I draw this trend line, right, on the daily time frame. Let's say I'm looking for a swing trade, so maybe a couple days, couple weeks. So I see that we have a downtrend line here, and we get a pullback and then a lower high and then a lower low. Then we kind of trade sideways for a second, and then we get a bull move that actually breaks this trend line. So when I see that trend line is broken, I might think to myself, well, I want to enter long here because oftentimes breaks of trend lines get continuation. So I might enter, right around here. So right around there. And at that point, I'm now thinking about where I want to get out. My sort of trade thesis, my hypothesis is that now that we are breaking this trend line, we may, start setting an uptrend on the daily, and I might be able to get some good profit. So as I enter the trade, there's a lot of things that can happen. Maybe it goes the way that I want it to, and it goes up, and I, am feeling good about the way that the price is moving. But also there's a possibility that it actually just goes back down. Maybe it bounces off this trend line, and then maybe it breaks the trend line and goes further down. So if I'm in a short-term time frame and my whole trade, plan was to basically enter on this break of the trend line and then, hope for upside, then once we break this trend line, I'm probably going to be getting out of this trade. I may even get out of the trade on the second time we test the trend line, because at that point, I can see that my hypothesis didn't really pan out. I was expecting that we were going to start an uptrend on the daily time frame. But instead we go down, we touch this trend line once, and then we touch it again. So I might not even wait for a break, because maybe we bounce along, bouncing off of this trend line. And at this point, you know, by the time we get to the second, third, fourth trend line, I mean, I'm actually down a good bit on my trade. So at that point, I want to say to myself, well, this didn't really go the way that I expected, so I'm going to get out of the trade, because I don't want to just kind of change my plan on the fly. I don't want to say, oh, well, you know, maybe it'll reverse after this next bounce. So that is how I think about it. And now let's just say that it does go the way that I want. So you know, that is how it went. We continued to get an uptrend. So let's say that I enter on this candle because I see this break of the trend line. So now I'm thinking about where I want to exit. So one place I could exit is this 36.75 resistance. Or maybe I think that we're going to go all the way up to this 40.30 resistance, and I want to wait for that. For me, probably what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to do more of a partial exit of my position. So first we get to this, you know, 36.70 resistance. So let's see how much. Let's just say that I entered at the low of this candle. So that's about a 10% move. That's not bad at all. You know, maybe at that point I would decide to sell, you know, half of my position. Then if I sold half my position there, so here, let me just make this clear. This is my entry. So entry right here. And then we've got, let's say I exit half. Oops, not 2/3, half. If I exit half here, then, you know, at that point, maybe I'm feeling good about my profit. I'm in profit here. So maybe at that point, I want to decide like what would make me exit my position. So one possibility is I could basically just exit if we hit my break even point. So this is my entry right here, this 33.08 level. So maybe I decide if the price goes back down to this level and breaks it, then I'm going to exit. And then, you know, I've made some profit, and then I've kind of broke even on the rest of my trade. So in this case, that doesn't happen. We actually dip back down and then we go higher. And, you know, we don't quite get to that 40.30 level. So here I might be thinking, okay, well, we're hitting another resistance here with this 40.30 level. So I could exit another half after that right here. And there you go. I've gotten a really nice trade. I've gotten, you know, the 10% here. And on the second leg of the trade, I got, let's just say like there, that's 15%. So not a bad trade. And, you know, it's also possible that maybe I say, well, I actually think the bulls look really, really strong. I have no reason to exit. Maybe I will only break if we go below this 20 period moving average. In that case, I would actually still be in the trade right now. I'd be waiting for an exit because, you know, the bulls are still doing well. They're staying above this 20 period EMA. So, you know, you want to be thinking about this stuff. And I'm giving this example partially because I had talked about sushi swap a little while ago, or I mean, I guess yesterday, not a little while ago, yesterday. I was talking about sushi swap, and I wanted to basically, you know, when I first gave an analysis of sushi swap, I was talking about how I felt like it was a good buy because I was noticing this ascending triangle pattern, and I was expecting that what would happen is that we would break above this pattern, and then we got this little pullback, and I thought we were going to go much higher. So my sort of trade thesis here, which, you know, apologies that I wasn't clear about this. I'm realizing now that I need to kind of go over this to explain where I'm coming from. So if I enter here, or let's just say like I enter here, I think this is where I was, you know, looking at at the trade, or looking at the chart, is when the price was around here. So now my expectation is that basically that we're going to get some more continuation, and that we're either going to, you know, pull back at one of these resistances, or maybe we're going to just start an uptrend, you know, and go higher like that, leg by leg. So when now that I'm seeing that actually we got a little bit of continuation after the bull flag, but now we're dumping below this line, this support. Now I'm thinking, well, okay, just like before, my trade plan didn't really work out. So I'm probably going to exit for a small loss here at this, you know, 1196 support. So, you know, at that point, it's actually, if let's just say I bought the top of this, then we're looking at like maybe a 10% loss there, you know, which is not a small amount. But if this pattern plays out bullish, you know, most of the time, or more often, more than 50% of the time, then I'm not really going to mind taking that 10%. But if you really just like sushi and you want to get in because you believe in it as a platform, then there's no reason that you should necessarily exit here. You know, there's a lot of things that could happen from here. It could go higher. It could, you know, actually bounce from that level and continue higher. It could go lower, but if you look at the really long time frame, maybe on the, you know, daily we go lower, but, you know, a few months from now things are really bullish. So I just wanted to put that out there because I realized I didn't fully explain that before, and it's really important. You know, you need to be thinking about your trade plan and trying to stick to your trade plan, and also just try to decide, are you even trading? You know, for a lot of people, it doesn't really make that much sense to trade. You know, for them, maybe what's better is just to buy and hold things that they believe in, you know? And in that case, you're probably going to do a lot better just buying stuff and forgetting about it for a while than obsessing over the chart. But if you're looking for these kind of shorter term gains, then that is when you want to be looking at the charts and you want to be kind of coming up with a plan. Anyways, all that aside, I'm going to jump into the first token, Ethereum. I like to start with Ethereum, as I said in the last video. So, got this line. We are, let's see, I'm going to put the EMA 12 and 20 up here too. So, you know, not much has changed since yesterday. It's only been a day. But you can see that already we are setting, it looks like we are very likely to set a higher low here. So if you're curious about, if you don't fully understand what I'm saying when I say higher low and lower high, I'm basically, when you look at the chart, you can see that there's sort of these like legs up where you have the price going up and then it goes down for a bit and then it goes up and then it goes down for a bit. And, you know, on the other side of that, you have the downtrend where you are going down and then you go up a little bit and you go down, you go up a little bit. So higher lows, lower highs, lower lows, all that stuff. All I'm talking about is the most recent lowest price in that trend or highest price in that trend relative to the previous lowest price. So for example, here, we could see this, let's just say that this candle is the most recent low. So that's 32.69. Our next low is going to be the bottom of this candle, and that one is 33.73. So this is a higher low compared to this. This is a higher low compared to this. And similarly, we have our 36.70 high here, and then we have a 39.68 high here. So this high is higher than this high. So this is a higher high. This is a higher low. And an uptrend is essentially higher high followed by higher low, followed by higher high, and so on and so forth. And a downtrend is lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. And when you get an equilibrium where you're trading sideways, you're going to get higher lows and lower highs, and kind of, you know, the range tightens to a point. So I just want to put that out there, but you can see here that it looks like, and it's not fully confirmed yet, but it looks like what we're seeing is, you know, the price wicked down to this trend line. It basically touched perfectly, and then, you know, wicked back up. And this is likely to be our higher low. Now, whether or not we continue higher and set a higher high or we trade sideways is yet to be determined. But, overall, I would say it's a good sign for the bulls that we have this touch of the trend line. The bulls obviously started buying at this trend line. And, now I imagine the bulls are going to try to set a higher high here. So still very bullish. Break of this trend line is going to be one of the first red flags for any kind of reversal. Also looking at things like breaking this low here of 41.50, breaking the 38.99 low. But bulls are still in control for the time being. So now we're going to go down my list. Another thing I was going to say about just generally my analysis and these charts is that, I started learning TA in the context of the stock market, where you have these stop losses and there's a lot of volume and there are these big companies that are known by, nationally and worldwide. So some of these coins, I think in general, the technical price action is important and it tells you a lot. But there's going to be some coins where something involving news or something about the makers of that token or that project, that might factor into how well the project does. So just keep in mind that every commodity, every token is going to be different. So you definitely want to make sure that you take that into account. And a lot of these tokens that you guys are telling me to analyze, I've never heard of. So, it could be that my analysis is that things are bullish, but actually, there was just some news that one of the creators is like rugging people or something. So just keep that in mind. Keep in mind that I don't know the history of each of these coins, and that if you know what's going on with the project, that can give you some insights into what's going to happen. Okay, so let's start with GLCH here. This has just a very, very there's definitely a trend line in there somewhere. It looks like it has a very sort of these uniform touches in terms of the trend line. So one line I could draw is here. And when you're drawing these trend lines, you're usually looking for multiple touches. This trend line doesn't work perfectly. I think maybe a better one is something like, let's see. Something like this. This trend line is getting a lot of touches in a lot of places, so it feels sort of like a more valid trend line. And that trend line has been broken due to this sideways trading here. We also can look at touches here, for example. And you can have multiple trend lines going on at once. And when one of the steeper trend lines breaks, then you get a shallower trend line that you can start watching. But overall, things have been pretty bullish with this GLCH token. Right now, what we're seeing is some sideways action here. And, I was talking earlier about higher lows and lower highs. So we've got this low here. We've got a higher low here. This is about the same. And here we've got this 159 high, and then we've got a lower high at 153, and it gets lower still over here. So this is what we call an equilibrium or sideways trading. So right now, that tells me a couple important things. First of all, the bull trend is slowing down. Now, that could be anything from a reversal happening or to a bull flag. Sometimes sideways trading just ends up being a bull flag. But that's notable. It's the biggest sort of slowdown we've seen in this bull run that this name has been having. And if we look at the 4 hour where I drew this trend line that had a lot of nice touches to it, we can see that has been clearly broken here. So I would say that going back to what I said earlier about how I think about a trade, if I got in on this coin earlier, this is probably a place where I would consider taking profits, or at least I would be sort of scouting my exit. Maybe if we break this sort of tightening range bearish, I exit, once we clearly break that range. So to me, this name, it has been bullish. It's now losing a little bit of momentum. and I would want to kind of wait and see what happens. I don't want to count on a bull flag here, for example. Otherwise I might just, find all these reasons to think that there's going to be a bull flag when actually, it could go either way. So I would say if you are in this coin long and you're sort of a trading mindset, you're not holding it for the very long term, this could be a good time to take some profits. Or you could wait for a break in the tightening range, and if we break bullish, you could just stay in and wait for more upside. If we break bearish, you could exit on that break. So here we've got FTM. I have no idea what FTM is. For someone who looks at these charts all the time, I really don't know that many altcoins, or not as many as I probably should. Okay, so this has been a very bullish coin too. And a lot of these coins have similar stories because this space can be relatively correlated. Different coins can kind of follow a similar path. So we've got a pretty nice clear trend line here. We've got a touch here. We almost touch here, we touch here, and then we have a touch here as well. So, and let's see. It's sort of not quite a channel. Let's see. Though I guess I could use the actual channel tool and see if that makes it clearer. Parallel channel. So with this tool, we can just make a parallel line like this. So yeah, it's not perfect. There's sort of a rough channel there, but I'm just going to focus on the trend line instead of the channel. All right, so this is a similar story to the last one in that, this has been a pretty bullish token, and you can see that this this bull move that happened from like July up until about September is a lot stronger than the bull action that we're seeing now. And one way you can tell is you can see just how far away from this 20 period moving average the price is. There's like a big gap here, and now like the gap is getting a little bit smaller. So we got this huge big move. We got a little bull flag and continuation. Then we got a proper pullback with a couple legs down, and then back into an uptrend. And this uptrend is just not quite as steep. So, there is that, to me, that signals that we're losing some momentum. That doesn't necessarily mean that I would exit because we're still holding this trend line. So for me, if I'm long this coin, I'm going to want to see a break of that trend line probably, and then that would be a time for me to take profit. Because we could go higher, we could see that. But I'm always looking for a series of red flags that tells me, okay, like this trade is over. If I'm in long, the first red flag is going to be the slowing momentum. The next red flag is going to be stuff like if we enter an equilibrium, that obviously is sideways instead of just purely bull action. Or if we break this trend line, that's another big red flag. So I would say, yeah, it looks like we could go higher here, but the slowing momentum is catching my attention. And I would look for a break of this trend line as well. Dot, we've got dot here. This is interesting. Okay, so we've got sort of a weak trend line here. It's not the most solid trend line in that we don't have a lot of touches going on. Let's take a look at like the weekly here. So, okay, so this is one of those charts where like zooming out to the weekly is pretty instructive. So we got like really big bull move back in December of 2020, kind of petered out, traded sideways a little bit. We got a big drop and downtrend, and then we did reverse here with this 1037 support, and now we're going higher again. And you can see that now we're breaking the previous all-time high, which is obviously bullish. It's hard to say how much further we're going to go. You can see that when we got to all-time highs before, or when we had this really strong bull run, you can see the RSI is all the way up near 90. So it's possible that we could go higher. What I'm inclined to think when I see this is that we have gotten like a pretty strong bull move here. We've recovered all this lost ground that came from this gigantic weekly candle. So I'm probably going to be a little bit hesitant about getting in long unless I'm going for a much shorter term play. If I'm buying purely for the long-term investment, and then as I said before, that's a different story altogether. But if I'm going for like a kind of a shorter term play, then I definitely want to be looking at trend lines as usual. So, I want to be looking at the daily trend line. I want to be looking at the 4-hour trend line. And I just want to be looking for the same patterns that I've talked about before, like just the momentum slowing. So yeah, this one I would say, definitely a bullish name. We just got a really big move and we're consolidating a little bit. And so far, bulls have defended this trend line. So we'll have to see if the bulls can, go above this 55.09 level and continue higher with a blue sky breakout. Here is LINA USDT. I also have no idea what this is. Basically, I have no idea what I think maybe like 80% of these stickers actually are. This one has this is a pretty clear trend line as well. We've got a lot of touches on this trend line. They're not all perfect, but that's okay. You're just trying to get the rough idea of, basically where is the price bouncing most often. And let's see if sometimes, the channel also works. Yeah, once again, the channel is not perfect, so I'm not going to use it here. But that said, this is a ticker that this is I probably need to zoom out a little bit here. So let's zoom out. Okay. Oh yeah, this chart is crazy because there's this one gigantic candle that's kind of throwing the whole thing off. It looks like this is a pretty volatile ticker, and we did just get this bull move. If we zoom out all the way to the weekly, I think we're going to see a little bit more clarity, except for that one giant candle is just kind of ruining everything. Let's do this. Let's do kind of a manual. I'm going to just adjust this manually so that it's a little bit clearer and we don't have to deal with that one crazy candle. But yeah, okay, so it sounds like, we kind of started off strong with this giant pump and immediate dump situation. Then we got, a weekly downtrend. We bottomed out here around, what is that, 0.019. Let's just say 19.5 to make it easy. And then we actually reversed the trend. We set a higher low here. We have not set a higher high though, and that is notable because we want to set the higher high to kind of confirm the uptrend. So right now, I'm still looking at this as basically sideways trading, and we very well may see essentially a tightening range of, the price range narrowing until we get a breakout. So when I look at this, I don't really see much of an entry. I would probably be looking for an entry if we get a tighter and tighter range, and then I see a breakout. Once I see a clear break of that range, that's probably when I would be wanting to enter. And really with this chart, it's quite hard to get a lot of useful information when you get to these shorter term timeframes, but I feel like the weekly is pretty clear. And what it's telling me is that we basically have sideways action and that we're not going to get really a big move until we break out of that range. So that's what I would be looking for. All right. EPS, no idea what that is, but let's analyze it. Let's go with the daily here. Okay, so we've got something. We've got kind of a trend line here, but if we look at it in terms of kind of like trend, we've really got sideways action going on right here because, clearly we were in a downtrend here. We're like with setting lower highs and lower lows. And then, now we're kind of bouncing around in this range. And once again, this is a situation where I am probably going to be waiting to see some kind of break of the range before I really do much. You know, the first step for breaking the downtrend is, or reversing the downtrend is breaking this trend line. So we broke that trend line, but we didn't really get like super bullish continuation. We really just kind of traded sideways. So this is kind of the same story as the last one. I would just say, you know, when I see this chart, I'm waiting for some indication of what happens after we break this tightening equilibrium. And I don't really want to guess as to whether it's going to be bullish or bearish. I mean, obviously we got a lot of bear action here, so the price is lower, but there's no telling, there's no reason why it can't go lower. So I personally want to wait until we break out of that range and then react to that. I don't want to guess which way we're going to break out. Oh, that's the same one. Okay, 1 USD Harmony. I also don't know what this is. Maybe it's higher than 90% that I don't, know anything about. Okay, so I always like to just start by drawing trend lines. We've kind of got one here. It's not super clear because it's in play, and then then it doesn't really come back into play until we break it up here. So I don't know if that's really the most useful trend line. Let's look at the daily, and maybe that will be less confusing. Okay. On the daily, do we have a good line that we can use? This is probably the best line I can find right here. And yeah, once again, it's in play here. It hasn't really been in place recently. So we're probably going to focus more on just like the trend. So, we've got, obviously this has been a bullish name. It's been in an uptrend, and right now we've got, we had this kind of slower uptrend here where we got like a lower high, basically a higher high, higher low, basically a higher high, just barely. Higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. So we're just kind of continuing this uptrend, and it is actually a pretty steep uptrend as well. So it is certainly looking bullish, and in terms of like a shorter term play, this could be a good entry, especially if you are confident that we're going to get another higher high. Because we're getting a strong trend here. We're also touching this 20 period EMA, which can sometimes bring in some buying. But yeah, you could potentially enter this low, and then if we dumped lower instead of going and setting a higher high, then you could exit and be like, okay, it looks like this bull run is over. I still feel like with this, a lot of this bull action seems to have started like back in June or July, and now it feels like it has run its course more. That doesn't mean that it can't run higher, but it just means that I'm more hesitant to get in long when I see that the bulls have been working hard to push the price up, because, there's not always buyers. And when you run out of buyers, you're going to get a pullback. Let's look at the weekly. Yeah, this is interesting because we have this really, really strong move with the bull flag, really, really strong follow through. Then we get a little bit of a pullback, and now we have a not nearly as strong move. So once again, I'm noting the slowing momentum, and that's making me, question getting into a long now. If I'm in a long from earlier, like say, back around, I don't know, 10 cents or so, then maybe I will stay in this trade, because I do see that the bulls are still strong, but, I'm probably not going to want to enter here because we've just the bulls have really been pushing hard, and we can see that clearly the trend is slowing. It's like the momentum is slowing down. This is Engine USDT. I don't know what Engine is either. Surprise. Okay. So yeah, this line is not great. It only has 2 touches. So well, okay, I'll leave it there. I don't know. Maybe it'll be useful. This is interesting. This is, you could, With this one, I'm inclined to kind of use these candle bodies more than the actual candle wicks, just because we're getting a lot of gigantic wicks on this name. Let's see if I can find a better line here. It's not the clearest line, but if you use the candle bodies, then you could argue that this is a decent line here. But this has almost kind of like a rising wedge feel to it, which is where, you know, you have a tightening range, but you still have kind of direction to it. And in this case, the direction is bullish, but you have this tightening range where it kind of feels like, you know, the highs are like not as high. You know, they started out higher. Now they're just not reaching as high as they were. And that makes me think that we could get a bear break eventually, because these like rising wedges usually do break bearish, but not always. But in general, you know, it's like, I know I keep saying this, I probably sound like a broken record, but we keep seeing these names that ran really hard, and now they are just there's not quite as much momentum. So once again, I'm kind of feeling with this name like, you know, we ran really, really hard, and now the momentum is slowing. So I'm not really wanting to like open new long positions here. I don't necessarily, also wouldn't open a short position because we haven't seen signs that the bears are actually, you know, making a move and pushing the price down. But, you know, at this point, I would probably not enter this. I would think, okay, you know, I missed my entry, so that's fine. I'll move on to the next one. I think Derpfin shared my post about FOMO, and you know, I mean, you're gonna see more opportunities. So when I see this, I'm like, okay, yeah, if I haven't gotten in now, it's probably not the right time to get in, and I'll have to wait for another opportunity. Totally fine with that. Congrats to the people who got in around $2. They, you know, probably made quite a good bit of money on this gigantic move. Luna is one of my favorites. So this one I do actually know. It's one of the rare ones that I actually know. So let's see here. I think the proper line to draw is more like this kind of a line. Let's see. Can I actually make a line that makes any sense? Okay, I think this line is all right. You know, I'm using the candle bodies here, which is why there's some wicks that don't work, but we have touches here, we have touches here, we have touches here. We've got a fair amount of touches. So this is another one that probably is gonna make more sense when we zoom out. Okay, well, I know I've said it before, but this is a very similar situation to a lot of these other coins where you have these like insane parabolic moves from, wow, from 26 cents all the way up to $23 in the span of 5 months. That's insane. And then we get this, you know, big pullback, which, you know, a lot of things pulled back at this point. And now we've had a nice gentler uptrend. And yeah, you can see once again, we have a slowing of momentum. So once again, I'm not probably going to enter this. Actually, I personally might enter Luna for a very long-term hold because I just love Luna and I love everything they're doing. So, you know, that's a situation where like I don't care as much about the chart. You know, if it dumped down to $3 again, I would buy more and then, you know, wait for things to recover. In terms of, you know, shorter term time frames and trades like that, it's basically the same thing I've been saying. Just wouldn't feel super comfortable getting in here. I would really want to wait for, you know, if we got another pullback and set a higher low on the monthly, for example, this is the monthly chart, then I would feel pretty good. Like if we can come down and you know, bounce somewhere before this previous low, then I might be getting in with the hopes that we'll either, you know, go higher or at least double top and then reverse. There's a good bit of profit, you know, between this low and wherever we reverse. So that's something I would consider. but probably not entering longs with that name. Okay, AAVE. I've heard of this a million times, and I still have never actually taken the time to look it up. Actually, a lot of the times when a lot of the tokens I do know stuff about, it's because I have friends who like actually research it and they basically report it back to me. But even then, sometimes I like, they tell me about it and I'm like, okay, I kind of get it, but then I never like do the deep dive. So I don't know what this one is either. This has a much more sideways feel than some of the others. There's this really crazy giant candle that is, I'm not sure what happened there, but there's probably a story behind it. And we have kind of this, I think that's probably an okay trend line on the daily. We certainly have these like lows that are getting a little bit higher. But in terms of the highs, they're not getting that much higher. So you could see this as something like a rising wedge, as I was saying before. And that would make me think that there's a decent chance that it will break bearish. Yeah, this is a name where it feels like we are basically trading sideways. The fact that it has a bit of a look of like a rising wedge is making me hesitant to want to enter long here. And looking at the weekly is basically further confirmation that we're probably dealing with like a tightening range equilibrium type pattern, sideways trading. It is getting rather tight. So at this point, seeing the weekly looking like this, where, with the exception of this freak candle that just like popped up to 450, we're bouncing around in a tighter and tighter range. And at some point, it will get too tight and will break out one way or the other. So when I see these sideways trades, I'm kind of waiting to see which direction we're going to go. I'm not going to try to guess. I want to see which way it goes and then react to that. And, unfortunately, it's a little bit harder in, crypto to take advantage of these situations. You can still do it, and it really depends on like which exchange you're using. But one strategy that people use sometimes with these equilibriums is that they will use a stop buy or a stop sell, but they won't use it as a way to protect from losses. They'll use it as actually an entry. So for example, oops, did not mean to do that. So let's just say, for example, that I want to basically enter this. I want to enter with a position if we break above or below the range. So I could say, and just to be safe, maybe I give it a little bit of room. So maybe I have a stop buy here and a stop sell like down here. So get rid of that line. So that would mean that if the price went that high, then it would buy and I would be entering a long position. Or if the price went below this, it would sell and I would be entering a short position. So in like the stock world, you oftentimes can set these stop buys or stop sells to basically enter on the break, because you're counting on the momentum of the broken range. Okay, let's keep going. This is even longer than the last one, which is amazing. Okay, Ash. I hope this is the right token, because sometimes when it comes to, using DEX tools, there's a lot of tokens with the same name. But this one seemed to have a lot of volume and such. And keep in mind that a lot of these DEX tokens are just, in general, they're just going to have less, less volume. They're going to be a little bit more unpredictable. Okay, so let's see. This is the hour. I want to go for the daily to start with, to just get an idea of what's happening. I don't have as many of my fancy indicators here. Okay, so we've got sort of a line here. And we are in an uptrend. It hasn't been a very strong uptrend. I mean, we got a higher high here, higher low, much higher high, higher low. So, in terms of like shorter term, this could be a good entry potentially, because we have this much higher low and it looks like the bulls are kind of, trying to set a higher low and go higher. So, it's not out of the question that we could get a higher high and higher low and continue the uptrend. And it's kind of an easy entry because that way, if we go lower, you know, we have this line and you can basically exit if we break this line. You know, it's pretty straightforward in terms of the strategy. And yeah, we've got a good amount of room to run on the RSI for this one. So I don't know. I feel overall bullish about this. There's nothing. This is not really giving me any reason to think that, you know, the bulls are weak right now. You know, I would be watching for break of this low and break of the trend line, and those are my red flags that I'm watching for. Now we have WOOF. Oh wow. Okay, so how do I expand this thing? Okay, there we go. WOOF is basically trading sideways right now. I guess you could draw a line here. Yeah, that kind of works. So, I mean, we can see that this line, which sort of is in play, it's not the strongest trend line ever, but it you know, it's got some touches. It's got some action. We've got sideways trading. So, you know, we had this like gigantic bull move. We got a pullback and some needed consolidation. We got a bounce off of this line. And then now we're getting into that tightening range zone where things just kind of trade sideways. And when you get into these, you know, situations, I've kind of explained more or less how I think about it. I would be looking for a break of this range. I would be waiting for some kind of break to tell me what to do next. So probably not going to be entering this token right now because it's just a little bit too hard to tell what's going on. I think given sort of the setup, I guess the daily is probably most clear. You know, it's possible that this could just be like essentially a large bull flag. And if that is the case, then I would want to be getting in if we kind of break above this whatever 72 level, because you know, assuming that it is a bear flag or a bull flag and the bull flag confirms, then I want to capture whatever upside comes after that break. But I'm you know, as I've said, I prefer to wait until I see confirmation that something is happening. I don't want to guess. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, well, you know, it's just such a bullish token, so I'm sure it's going to break bullish. I personally don't like to do that. That's why some know me as Safety Neil. We're also seeing a lot of, like, the volume has dropped off quite a bit, which is not surprising given that, you know, this is a very new coin and people tend to ape into it early on. I'm guessing that when we see a break of this range, we're going to see a lot more volume. So you can also watch for a volume spike as kind of an indicator that something's happening. There was one final one, which is, let me just, oh God. Let me just, I think I have like 8 altcoin ones now. I think it was OHM that my buddy Super Sente was asking about. That looks like another one that maybe is going to be better on Dex Tools. So let's go to Dex Tools. Okay, we're going to look at, how do I even, oh yeah, there we go. OHM, we're going to look at OHM. I mean, I guess we can use the DAI OHM one. That probably the best one. Oh yeah, it's a hot one. Okay, yes. Oh, I've heard a lot about this coin, and I know a little bit about how it functions and such. All right, so let's start on the weekly just to kind of get the broad picture. Yeah, look, I mean, this is a pretty volatile name. We got this like really bullish action initially, pullback. We did get the weekly higher low, which is nice. Bounced around a little bit and then higher again. Did not break the previous range. So that's something to note, is we did not break that previous all-time high. We did kind of close, like the fact that the candle closed above here is nice. It didn't wick down like here, but it didn't like clearly break it either. We got the really strong bull move over the last, I don't know, a couple months. We got a big pullback, and now we seem to be in a tightening range equilibrium situation, at least for the immediate moment. That's what's going on. When, as you can see with kind of these like, this range of trading prices tightening a little bit. Whether this is something like a, well, it doesn't really look like a weekly bull flag. It looks more to me like we have just the price going sideways now. Now, it's worth noting this little daily green candle here. I'm not sure how much time is left on that. It's not showing me on this chart, but if we continue with this tightening range, if we get some more buying here, then you could probably expect that the price will continue to go up and likely reject off of this line, since we have this tightening range. So could be a good entry for a shorter term play. And of course, if you did enter on something like that, you would want to exit if we went that way. And yeah, but in terms of like longer term past that, I'm not really sure what the future of this coin looks like. We'll have to see what happens with this tightening range. If the range continues to tighten, then it will eventually break in some direction, and then that will tell us a lot more about the overall sentiment. But as you can see, recently it had a really nice bull move, and now there's a little bit of a battle going on between the bulls and the bears. Anyways, I think I'm gonna end it here. That was so long. Thank you if you're still watching. That's amazing. And hopefully you can at least skip through to the coin that you wanted to learn about. And I hope too that that hearing a little bit about this sort of mentality helps, because I'm hoping that will help people to take the information that I'm giving and the analysis that I'm giving and apply it to their own situation. Because I really don't want people to just hear my analysis and then do something because I said to. I want you to think about your situation, what makes sense for you, what your strategy is, and then, hopefully that the analysis will help you make your own decisions. All right. Well, I will be on Twitter Spaces in about an hour and 45 minutes. So I will probably see some of you there. Take care in the meantime.